Okay. Welcome to TwoQuestions.tv. I'm Susan Barancini-Mo. Joining me today is Brian Signorelli, another Italian name. No names you have to hear on this show. Brian is the director of HubSpot's Global Sales Partner Program. He regularly writes, develops, and presents the amazing sales content that you see for HubSpot's partners and its customers. He's also the founder of inboundseller.com, and he's the author of this book, Inbound Selling, How to Change the Way You Sell to Match How People Buy. Hi, Brian. Welcome to the show.
Hey, Susan. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. That's quite the introduction. I love that we can build a little bit of rapport around complicated last names. That's always fun.
Yes, and it's the spelling that gets people. I used to be so easy. My name was basically Sumo. And that no one forgets that. But I married a Uruguayan, half Italian, half Spanish, and we followed the traditions of this country. And now it's Susan Barancini-Mo. What a name!
It's quite the name. You did Signorelli perfectly. I mean, you didn't hesitate at all. A lot of people will butcher that. So.
Oh no, Signorelli!
My proverbial hat is off to you on that one.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right. So for our viewers who are waiting for their copy of your book to arrive, what exactly is inbound selling?
Yeah, so inbound selling, it's a couple different things. Like one is it's a book that I wrote, which was really partially a personal story about how much I hated sales before I got into sales.
Yeah.
Two, it's how my view on sales changed. And in the book, I try to give people literally a step-by-step guide. It could be anybody from very early on in their career to maybe a little bit later on that's saying, kind of the way things have worked over the last 10 years, 20 years aren't working as well anymore. I need to maybe change some things up. And then the book kind of concludes with a little bit of commentary on, my thoughts as a sales leader, pulls in some commentary around how different functions collaborate to make kind of a modern sales organization or engine run. And then kind of ends with a little bit of an interesting dystopian / Charlton Heston-esque future of sales, perhaps, that I don't necessarily disagree or agree with. I just thought it would be thought-provoking. So anyway, that's the book. And then inbound selling is actually something that the company that I work for, HubSpot, kind of came up with probably 4 years ago or so. And it's an extrapolation of the original inbound marketing concept that HubSpot came up with. But inbound selling really kind of picks up from where inbound marketing left off. And really, the very short description of what inbound selling is, it is just a modern approach to selling in a more human, empathetic, and relevant way in basically what is an extremely complicated buying environment in 2018 and what will surely persist beyond that.
Yeah. Well, and the beauty, there's a beauty and I think also a fear in this concept, because I've always thought inbound marketing, HubSpot, I know is like, the leader in inbound marketing. And I've always thought, especially with that concept, that sales has become more and more integrated with marketing, just because marketing is often what prospects are used to using now for making a lot of that decision before they get into the sales process.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a huge fan of inbound marketing, but I almost feel like for a small business owner, there's a lot of work involved, and it's the idea of inbound marketing and inbound sales begin to take on this concept like, oh my gosh, it's overwhelming. Now, I know in the book you talk about it. No, not so much time, not so bad. Don't be freaked out and scared by this.
Right.
So could you talk a little bit about that? Because I think that for me, that's always the fear, like, I'm so busy already. How much more is this going to take? How much more is my team going to have to put in? So how much time and how does it take, and how does the small business owner avoid overwhelm?
Yeah, sure. So as far as the inbound marketing side of things goes, the first thing I'd point out is inbound marketing is not necessarily designed to replace everything that you're doing. So I'm not suggesting, and I don't think HubSpot would necessarily suggest either, that this is sort of a entire rip and replace of your marketing strategy. That's the first part. So I'd say at a minimum, it might be supplemental. The second part that I was a sales rep and a sales manager and doing some different things now too at HubSpot. But whenever I would talk to people who were potentially going to buy HubSpot, they would raise a very similar question. And I would say, look, like, don't worry about doing inbound marketing now. The first thing I'd actually encourage you to think about is how well is your current marketing even working?
Yeah.
And ask yourself, okay, so you're spending money. I mean, a lot of times people would say things like, I'd ask them, well, how are you doing marketing now? And they'd say things like, well, we go to trade shows and we buy lists and we do email campaigns, so on and so forth. I'd say, okay, great. And how's that working for you? And oftentimes,
that's always the scary question, right?
Yeah. And sometimes they'd say, oh, it's working really well. Or they'd say it's working maybe not so well. And then regardless of what they'd say, I would always say, and why do you feel that way? Right? Like, tell me what proof you have that you think it's working well. Tell me what proof you have that you think it's maybe not working so well, so on and so forth. And usually people would say things like, well, all that money we're spending on AdWords, or the money we're spending on trade shows, the money we're spending on direct mail, like I'm really having a tough time tracking the ROI, or it's not generating leads, or like it might be generating leads, but I can't really tie the pieces together, so on and so forth. And so I'd say, okay, great. So you're doing 5 different things with marketing right now. Can you stack rank them in terms of what's working the best and what's the worst?
Yeah.
And then we go and say, okay, well, which one's the worst? Are you open maybe to redirecting some of that budget toward doing something differently, since you already think it's maybe not working so well? And that's where I'd say dip your toe in the water with inbound marketing, or what a lot of people call content marketing. And let's see if we can get just generally a better ROI out of your total marketing budget. And then if we show some of that progress with the inbound marketing side of things, then maybe we spend a little bit more. Maybe we kind of up that over time, and maybe eventually it becomes more prominent in your overall marketing strategy, but it's not necessarily going to go from non-existent to the number one strategy from day one.
Yeah. Yeah. Same with inbound sales then.
Yeah. I mean, inbound selling is, it's not something that necessarily takes a huge investment of time to pull off. It's really just asking yourself, how are you selling now? How is your business sourcing leads? How are your sales reps trained to interact with people that, like whoever they're calling, whether it's cold calling, whether it's referrals, whether it is, inbound leads coming through your website? The first question to ask is really, what are the kind of conversion rates at different points in your funnel? And I know even saying that to a lot of small business owners, they're like,
what?
Wait, like, what do you mean conversion rates in the funnel? I'd say, okay, well, let's take a step back.
Yeah.
Here's kind of a generic sales process. It should be broken into these kind of 3 to 5 parts, so on and so on. It's going to be a little bit different for everybody. But I'd say one of the first things you need to understand is things like, if you're looking from a digital perspective, at least, you'd want to see, okay, how much website traffic am I getting each month? Of the 1,000 or 10,000 visits or whatever, like what percentage of those are converting into leads, meaning they fill out a form on your website asking for some more information about whatever. Then the question is, of those leads, how many are your salespeople actually able to connect with at all? Of those, how many turn into a follow-up conversation, maybe a presentation or a product demonstration, and then ultimately, how many new customers are you able to generate? That's kind of a very broad stroke funnel, so to speak.
Yeah.
And those are some of the things that I'd be willing to bet that a lot of business owners, they looked at it, and if they were able to compare, whether it's with real data or even anecdotally, I'd say if they looked at the data from even 2 or 3 years ago compared to today, they're going to say,
different.
Geez, it's down, it's different. And really a huge part of that is, without making this, overly complicated or too long, about five or I'd say even 10 years ago, maybe, the world started catching on to this idea of content marketing. And the unintended blowback is that every single buyer is inundated with information now and feels as if the perfect solution to their problem must exist if only they could type in the right Google query.
Yeah.
And the reality is it doesn't necessarily exist for everybody, but there is this perception that it does. And that is one of the major forces that I think a lot of salespeople are facing today is these buyers are doing so much research on their own. They're trying to figure out, does the perfect solution exist for me? There are a bunch of other factors that go into it, but like that's a really tough world to sell in when your buyers think that there's like always something better out there, or that, or really that they can just do all this research on their own.
Right. Right. Really interesting stuff. And I like how you laid it out in the book. The book is, it's entertaining. I like that, the fact that your story is intertwined with this information and this step-by-step process makes it such an entertaining book to read.
Well, I appreciate
And
that.
so I really enjoyed it very much. Brian, where can people find you?
LinkedIn is an easy one. Brian Signorelli. There are multiple Brian Signorellis on there, but if you're looking, I'm based in Boston, Massachusetts, in the States. If you want to connect with me on Twitter, at Inbound Seller or at Brian Signorelli, that's perfectly fine. Those are probably the two best ways to get in touch with me. I'm more than happy to connect. Very open to that. So I'll try to connect with you if you reach out.
Perfect. And we'll have those links in the show notes so people can find the right you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for joining me today, Brian.
Thank you for having me.
All right, viewers, here's the book. This is it. You need to go get it. We're going to have a link down below so you can get your copy from Amazon. Thanks for watching. We'll see you next time.